Down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Whiskey Musings broadcast. I'm Rick, your intelligent, your awesome, your magnanimous host. And tonight I've got a good one for you. I hope you stick around. We're going to be talking about a couple of different things. But obviously with COVID-19 attacking and, sitting here and making sure that everybody stays at home. I want to hopefully make sure that everybody who is still going out and doing different things, essential things, I would hope that you're staying safe. I guess now they're saying that you should be wearing masks. You definitely need to wash your hands. You need to make sure that, you limit contact 6 feet apart, those kinds of things. I'm pretty sure that everybody that I know of is out there playing it safe and doing what you need to do in order to stop this virus from passing around. As I did on the last transmission, I'm going to let everybody know that I am going to send out a round of applause to our workers, healthcare workers, electricians, transportation specialists, grocery store clerks. Man, there's just too many people to list that normally we don't think about. There's things that go on that we just don't even think about. And so I just want to give a round of applause to those folks and let them know that we absolutely appreciate everything that you are doing in order to keep us safe, keep yourselves safe, keep our supply lines running, and making sure that everything that we're doing is taking care of this pandemic that we have going on. Okay, so tonight I've hopefully got a good show for you and everything. I do have got to get the drink in. So hopefully, tonight I've got a couple thought questions for you, and I want you to think about this. Now that we've had the opportunity to be a part of this isolation and everything else, it's a new feeling for some. I know that there are people like myself who generally tend to work alone and do things on your own. It's not affecting people like myself very much. And in some cases, we might even be sort of laughing at the people that are experiencing the isolation for the first time. But that being said, I want to ask you this question, and I want you to think about this, and I'll give you my answers a little bit later in the show. But the first question that I want to ask is, after experiencing this for a couple of weeks, is there anything in particular that you would like to see continue after everything is said and done? And then the second question, so the first one is, what would you like to see continue? And then the second question is, what absolutely is driving you insane? What is driving you absolutely nuts? Something that you definitely do not want to have continue. And it can be anything. It really can. So just think about those two questions for a little bit. And I wanted to bring up the topic tonight. I wanted to bring up the topic of diversity. And I'm not talking about like political diversity or, diversity in the way that you would normally think of it. I wanted to bring up diversity in the sense of, realistically, in the sense of how we hang our toilet paper. Okay. How do we hang our toilet paper? I mean, toilet paper is a really big thing that a lot of people have been hoarding it and taking it and that kind of stuff. So I wanted to get that out there in front of everybody. How do we hang our toilet paper? Is it under or is it over? Realistically, which one is it? And I kind of was thinking about this, and it's really strange. I was thinking about this, on one of my drives. I was out and about this week doing some jobs and in my other position. And I I was thinking about this, and so many people get so wrapped up over what is under or over. So let's talk about that for a second, because if we think about this, you've got the people who are in the toilet paper rolls got to go in the under camp, and then there's the people that are like, no, it's got to be in the over camp. And there's advantages to both. I do see that, but let's be real here. If you're one of those people that gets so wrapped up about whether or not the toilet paper roll goes over or whether it goes under, I can't imagine what you do if you run across a situation like this, where it's the commercial version that's sideways and you can't even see the toilet paper roll, so you don't know if it's under or if it's over. I mean, if this is something that really, really bothers you, this image would drive you absolutely insane. This would make you nuts, because you couldn't tell whether it was under or over. Are you really that crazy? Are you really that crazy? So I was thinking about this, and one of the things that came up to me was some of the reasons as to why you would do it one or the other, one way over the other. And if you have cats, and I have a cat, thankfully he doesn't stay inside a lot, but I have a cat. And if you have cats, I could see where you would want to put the toilet paper under rather than over. Because if you do it over, they have more of an opportunity to unroll it and use it as their little plaything. So I could see where this would make a mess. So you would want it to come from the underside so that, as the cat scratches on it or moves it around, because they're mischievous, but as it moves it around, it doesn't unroll. And so I can see where this is a big thing right here. This would be a reason for doing it one way over another. And here's another reason. Let's say you want to write a message on it, and you're thinking of writing this message and you're thinking about how the person takes it off the roll. And so you write the message on it, and so it comes from the top. Rather than coming from the bottom, it's coming from the top. And I can see where that would be a big deal for you. A big deal. Anyway, especially if you have a roommate, as this one example shows, if you have a roommate that steals your toilet paper rolls, I mean, that just gets into a whole nother issue altogether in terms of toilet paper roll hoarding and toilet paper roll stealing and that kind of stuff. I mean, thankfully, I never had any roommates that required me to, count the toilet paper rolls. I mean, we kind of went in on that together, but still, the point being is that I could see where you would want it to go one way or the other. But it really got me to thinking. So I did what everyone does best. I went to Google and I searched on Google, and Google actually, when you put in this thought process, oh, sorry, I forgot. There's one other time where you might want to have the roll come off in a certain direction. And of course, that's if you're going to be a joker and go to April Fools, and create a toilet paper roll. Now, this is actually a pretty mean trick, if you ask me. But anyway, so, anyway, to get back to what I was doing, I went to Google and I looked to find out, is there actually a way for this toilet paper roll? Is there really a proper way to do this? Because, I mean, my wife and I get into conversations about this sometimes. And so I actually went to Google, and Google is your friend, sort of. More on that at another time, but Google brought me to this. And this is basically telling me that we're all misled. We were all told, the toilet paper roll goes one way. And it looks like from this, the patent application back in 1891, the inventor basically said the roll has to go under and not over. So for those of you that are doing it over, you're supposedly doing it wrong. But are we really? Because further search and further looking, here's what else I found. I found the same person, the same date, showing it going over and not under. So realistically, this is very confusing for me. It's extremely confusing because, again, the interwebs, which is supposed to be the truth, or at least people think it is, that you're thinking about whether or not the toilet paper roll goes under or over. And so, anyway, I just don't understand. I'm still confused. Somebody help me out. Because I'm still confused. Is the toilet paper roll supposed to go under or over? You know what? Honestly, does it really make a difference? I mean, let's face it. Does it really, really and truly make a difference? Because whether the toilet paper roll is going over or whether it's going under, it's still doing the job. You're still pulling it off the roll. You're still using it to wipe your rear end. I mean, honestly, do you really, really need to argue about whether it goes over the top or under the bottom or whatever? I mean, God, you're wiping your butt. Why? Why would this matter? Why would this really make a big difference? And I bring this up only because of the fact that I want you to think about what's going on today. I want you to think about your life and how things are different today, what you might want to change, what you don't, and what is really important. What is really important? I mean, is the toilet paper roll going over the top or under the bottom? Is that really, truly important? Because it functions the same way. It functions exactly the same way. Because you're going to take the toilet paper off and you're going to do something dirty and nasty with it. Wait. I don't even want to know. I don't want to know. Don't tell me anything. Whew. Okay. All right. Sometimes kids can be watching this, so just, keep it somewhat sane. Anyway, so let's get back to my original two questions. Question number one was, after all this is over, what would you like to keep about this experience? So I was thinking about this a lot, and I spent the last week going out to customer sites, and I spent 5 days driving. And you've got to understand where I live, which I'm not necessarily going to announce publicly, but a lot of people have an idea of where I live. But where I live, I usually have a long way to drive to get to customer sites, especially those here in the Puget Sound region. And so one of the things that I personally would love to keep is the amount of traffic that's on the road. My normal commute to get anywhere that I want to go is roughly an average of 2 hours. And that's on a good day. And that's scary. I mean, 2 hours when under the best of circumstances, which is today, and okay, keep in mind, I'm not saying the best of circumstances is today, but the best of circumstances in terms of traffic, let me put that into context, today is maybe an hour and 10 minutes. It takes me twice as long on a normal day as it does today. And while that is, it's sad because I know how many people are out there, but it's nice for people who drive because we've got traffic everywhere. I mean, we're about as bad as some other cities that everyone knows about, that everybody complains about traffic, like LA and Chicago and New York. And I mean, New York, oh my gosh, I took a trip to New York one time. I went to see I went for work, but I ended up seeing my niece over there, and she took me on the town. It's like 11:30 at night. We're down by Times Square, and it's bumper to bumper traffic. I was like, where were all these people going, and why are they going? And well, technically they weren't going anywhere because they were all sitting in traffic. They were bumper to bumper, honking their horns and everything else. And I sat there and I couldn't even believe it. 11:30 at night. I mean, 11:30 at night. Most people are in bed at 11:30. Not New Yorkers. New Yorkers are still out on the town. They're still partying. In fact, they're probably just having dinner, to be honest with you. But anyway, so as far as I'm concerned, one thing that I would like to keep, and it's sad, but I would like to keep it, would be traffic. I'd like to keep the traffic levels the way they are. Okay. I'm an introvert, and I don't really care for people that I don't know, especially, to come up into my space. Now, I used to work as a sales guy at a well-known store that is no longer around. And I used to have this thing where I would get into conversations during the sales process with the customers, and they would get closer to me. I noticed this. They would like draw themselves closer to me, and it used to bother me. It bugged me so much that I even mentioned it to my manager at the time. And I asked her, and I said, what is it about me that is making these people, they listen to me and they want to step to me? I mean, it's like a literal step, you know, they're back here, and then all of a sudden they're just like, now she kind of laughed and she told me that I'm one of those types of people that apparently people gravitate toward. When I'm speaking, people gravitate toward me. Now, I honestly, I wasn't even aware that was a thing. And it used to drive me nuts. So this distancing thing is really cool for me because I don't have to worry about anybody invading what I would consider my personal space. So that's a lot of fun for me. So this whole 6-foot rule thing, hey, you know what? I'm liking it. I'd love for that to go back. Or not to go back, sorry. I'd love for that to stick around. Another thing too, hand washing. Now, you traveling like I do, I go through a lot of public airports, a lot of public spaces. And you would be amazed, I think, at the number of people, and I'm talking about men, because obviously I'm not going into the women's restroom and doing this poll, but anecdotally speaking, the number of men who do not bother to wash their hands after going to the bathroom. And I'm not talking about just like walking up to the sink and, you know, running your hands under the water and thinking that's cool. That's not washing your hands, people. You know, this whole washing your hands with 20 seconds in 2 rounds of happy birthday to me, that is proper cleanliness. And I would see these people walk into these public restrooms and they go and they rinse their hands under the water, if they even touch it at all. And then they're like grabbing all these other, you know, grabbing the paper towels, grabbing their combs, doing whatever they're doing with their hair. And frankly, I'm not a germaphobe. I really am not, but it would kind of disgust me a little bit. It would make me think about what all these people are doing, and they're grabbing handles and stuff. And it started making me think about this. So I want that to continue, either that or the whole process of shaking hands, because you don't know where that other person's hand has been. That process would be cool to stick around, where we don't shake hands. We just acknowledge everybody. We don't have to touch anybody, that kind of thing. Now, my wife's a hugger, so that's going to be a little more difficult for her. And I understand that. I understand there are people that really crave that human contact. But in terms of my list, I would say those are like the top 3. The traffic, the 6-foot distancing, and the washing of the hands at a minimum, or shaking hands as the next piece. So, as far as things that I don't want to continue, one thing that I definitely don't want to continue is I don't want this control of shutting down parks and things like, oh, for an example, I was reading a story. I guess there was a Kentucky mayor that was threatening because tomorrow's Easter, you have lots of people go off to mass to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. And so, for those people in Kentucky, there were a couple, I think Louisville was one, and there was another, I can't think of the other city, but there were a couple of cities there that they were talking about going and getting license plates for a sermon that was going to take place in your cars. They were going to bring in all the cars. The churchgoers were going to be in their cars. They were not going to be in the church itself. They were not going to be having contact, human to human contact. And so anyway, so the mayor wanted to get these people and fine them for gathering. Now, the last time I looked, that is a First Amendment right of ours, is freedom of religion. It's also a right of ours to be able to peaceably assemble. And although right now it seems like we're getting, or we're being denied those rights, there is a reason for it. So, I mean, I'm not going to jump into the whole camp of like, oh my God, they're taking our rights and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that, we need to be able to get together. We need to be able to commune together. We need to be able to practice whatever religion that we wish. Those are the tenets of America. Those are what this country was founded upon. And so, having that opportunity to be able to do it, and they're doing it safely. So I don't quite understand where this mayor was going to go with this, or these mayors, I should say, were going to go with this, but they decided that they wanted to do this, and they announced it to everybody. They said, hey, if you have to go to church on Sunday, we're going to start checking your license plate numbers, and we're going to fine you. And that doesn't make any sense to me. So taking a look at, and this is the danger of inflammatory articles such as this. So if you look at the example I just gave with the toilet paper roll, I mean, I still don't know because, the Google is supposed to be the place to go, and it's supposed to be for everyone to go to get it. Even I say it, hey, Google it. Find it out. I mean, that's one of the greatest search engines today. We have so much information, so much data and availability of it. But you have to question. You have to dig deeper to understand what it is that you're looking at. You need to bounce that idea off different places to figure out whether or not what we're being told is true or not. And that's the lesson I think that I can learn from this, and I'm passing it on to you in terms of the toilet paper thing, is that just because the interwebs tell you that this is true, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is. You need to take it with a grain of salt, and you can't jump into the middle of this. And you can't jump into the story and think that what you're being told is the 100% true and correct. So, I lost my train of thought there for a second. So, when you're dealing with the things that we don't want to carry forward, that's one of them. I don't want us to lose our freedoms. I understand the reasons why. I do get that, but I don't want to lose that as we go forward. So it's going to be interesting coming out of this situation as to what happens after. Another thing that I don't want to see carry forward is obviously the other restrictions that we've got going on here. So in terms of things like the restaurants being closed, and not being able to actually go out to dinner where you have to, bring take home or take out or eat in your car. That I think is something that I don't want to carry forward. I understand it's a necessary evil right now, but I don't necessarily want to carry that forward into our next evolution, into where we go outside of this. I do believe that there are technology things that we can utilize. I think it's interesting to see the way that teachers are reacting to this situation. I know that like our district is coming back off of spring break. And so there's going to be teachers that are coming into classrooms and they're going to be teaching in different ways. I think that is an excellent way for them to expand their abilities and to find new ways to instruct. Because one of the things and I've done a couple of college instructions, I've headed up a couple of college classes and I've coached soccer in the past. And so one of the things that I always tried to tell myself was if I had a struggling student or a struggling player, that it was not their responsibility to come to me to figure out what I was trying to tell them. It was my responsibility to ensure that I told or passed on the information that I needed to in such a way that they understood it. And if they couldn't understand it the way I was presenting it, it was my job and my responsibility to change my tactics and find a way to make sure that they understood the material. And that was my personal thing inside. That's what I wanted to do for them because, again, as an instructor, that's my responsibility to pass on that information. It's not the student's responsibility to try and figure it out. And it drives me nuts when I run across anybody, realistically, that doesn't understand that concept, that doesn't understand that when you're trying to send a message to someone, regardless of what the message is or the situation, it is the communicator's responsibility to pass that message in such a format that the receiver can get it and understand it. And so, that's one of the reasons why, like I said in an earlier episode, I believe I was saying my choice of format was originally going to be voice, but as I thought about it and got more involved, I decided to go video. And so I created this whole scenario off of video because I wanted my viewers and listeners to understand what it was that I was saying. And you can't do that all the time with text. You can't do that all the time with the spoken word, although the spoken word is better than written word because there is a tone and inflection within your voice. But having the expression along with it, the facial expressions and the gestures, as you can see, I'm gesturing a lot tonight. Anyway, having the gestures to go along with it, that is important. And that's one of the things that I think that unfortunately, this experience where we're all stuck at home, we're not doing the face-to-face contact, that is something that I think I don't want to stop. As much as I hate video calls at work, don't even get me started. But I do understand there is a need, there's a necessity for that same medium. And being able to do this with you has made it to where I am starting to warm up to that fact a little bit better. Now, that being said, I am a tech geek, so kind of like the whole idea of the special backgrounds here. But I wanted to make absolutely certain that as far as from my perspective, that as we move forward, we start to utilize some of these things that we have available to us now that we're trying to do now. And eventually I think we will. I think we will learn it. I think we will get to a point where we're starting to utilize technology in ways that we haven't before. So again, the whole concept of what are things that you want to keep out of this and what are things that you want to for sure get rid of. And for those of you that are married, I'm not talking about your spouses. Sorry. Anyway, so I'm taking a look at the chats here. The main one here is the Facebook chat. Nobody's really answered me yet. Speaking of that, I challenged you on my last video to do something, and I haven't received anything. If you sent it and it didn't get it, obviously we've got a problem. We've got a technical problem, something we got to work on. But I want to see some of your ideas. What are some of the things that you want to carry through this event? And what are some of the things that you definitely don't want to continue throughout this event when we finally come to the end of it? And believe me, I do believe we're going to come to the end of it. When that end is, who knows at this point? But I know it's going to come to an end soon. And, well, I mean, we can all hope. So that's pretty much kind of my whole thing for this, is to take a look and, oh, Kirk, don't have time for homework. Seriously. Come on. You couldn't have done a limerick. Really? Anyway. All right. Okay. Maybe I'll give you a pass. The assignment might have been a bit too much, Teach. Anyway. All right. So moving on. All right. Anyway, so what kinds of things are you guys doing right now? What kinds of things that you're doing right now that you maybe haven't done before? What type of stuff are you doing? I can tell you one thing. I know that my kids are spending a lot of time thinking about the future. They are spending a lot of time trying to figure out the future, my daughter especially. But what types of things are you doing that maybe you wouldn't normally do, but now that you've got time, you're sort of taking it on? And I have to admit, this entire week, I was, like I was said before, I was driving to customer locations. There weren't a lot of people there, very few. In fact, I only had contact with maybe one person at each facility, just enough to get me into the facility and that. But that being said, being out on the streets, driving on the streets, it was a little eerie, a little ghost town kind of thing. It kind of made me think a little bit about the number of people that are out there, and the number of people that are working and the ones that aren't. And we need to, take a better accounting of the people that are working, in terms of their importance in our lives and what we're doing. So anyway, I mean, that was definitely something. Beautiful weather. It was great weather. I wish I had time to actually do something with it. But unfortunately, I don't think my boss would have appreciated me taking time off of work for that. But I hope everybody else got a chance to get out. Maybe you're doing some stuff in the yard. I heard that a lot of the warehouse, or not warehouse, but a lot of the hardware places had a lot of sales and things going on, and you were doing something in the yard. Speaking of yards, has anybody done anything with hydroponics before? There's been a book that's been floating around Facebook. It talks about hydroponics, and it's something I've kind of been interested in getting involved in, hydroponic gardening. It's mainly just because it doesn't have to deal with soil. It has everything to deal with like water and fish. Now I'm a little leery of the whole free book thing. Like, oh yeah, write to us and get a free book. It's sort of like the whole, I'm from, what is it? Nambia or someplace like that. I'm from Africa, and you send me $1,000 and I'll give you $1 million back in US dollars. And it's stuff like that kind of makes me feel weird. And definitely is a scam, but this book on hydroponics. And so that's going to be something that I'm probably going to research. I'm going to research a little bit more about hydroponics, in order to understand some more of the science behind it, and to kind of get involved with that. So what are some of the things that you might be doing? Something new, something different. Boy, that's pretty much my most recent one. is that one. And new books that you've read, maybe new movies. Speaking of movies, there is a ton of movies that have come out. And for some reason, my daughter has gotten fascinated by some of the horror films. Now, I personally think they're funny, some of them. And of course, I look at it for the realistic aspect from the standpoint of, oh my gosh, this is fake. Not so much getting wrapped up in the whole idea of like the horror flick, but there were two of them that we watched. One of them was supposed to be a true story from a Connecticut haunting, I think is what it was called. And it was supposed to be a true story about a family that had gone through essentially a demon possession and an exorcism. And I'm not laughing at that because depending upon where you fall on the religious spectrum and things like that, believe in demons and angels and that kind of stuff. And I'm not even going to go down that path. But the whole concept and the actors that they were using, they were relatively, nobody I'd ever seen before. So it was just sort of comical the way that it was presented and some of the things that they did. The other one that I saw was called Polaroid. And the premise on this movie was that some evil guy had, done awful things to his daughter, and he ended up getting stuck in this old Polaroid camera. And so this girl was given it as a gift because her friend had found it at some yard sale and knew she was into photography. And so she ends up getting this Polaroid camera, and come to find out that every time she took a photo, the people in the photo would die. And so she had to figure it out. Again, bunch of no names, low budget films. But it was interesting to sit there and watch with my daughter. And it wasn't so much that I was entertained. I was more entertained by her reactions than I was by my own, or by my feelings toward the movie, or, however you want to figure it out. But the one movie that I remember, and I know several of you that grew up in my area are going to remember this, but do you remember the Blair Witch Project and how it was, there were rumors running around that this was a true story, and that it was done by people who, had actually gone through this experience. And then after the movie was released, shortly afterward, I remember a news article coming out and saying, no. The whole thing was staged. Everything was fake. And there was so many different rumors running around about it. And so movies are going to be interesting. I personally don't like going to the movies. To me, it's too expensive to sit there for 2 hours and watch this film and watch it on a big screen, when I can have just as much enjoyment by, watching it on the television at home. And not only that, but I don't have to pay for the expensive popcorn and candy. So I don't really get into going to movies per se. But that's something that's definitely going to change. I seriously wonder if movie theaters and moviegoers, they were already kind of taking a big hit from the Netflix folks. But I'm kind of wondering what it's going to look like at the end of all this when they finally, kick things loose again and we start going out. I would like to be able to say that I'm going to support those folks because, they've got jobs too. It's just not something that I would necessarily enjoy. But maybe it is something that I go and do, after all this is done and everything's taken over and that kind of thing. And we move on. For someone like me who sits and watches TV screens, I've got my tablet, we've got our TV here. I can get close to the screen, that kind of thing, so I can see the fine details and those types of things rather than sitting at it so far away. But the whole point of the matter is you've got this big, huge, large screen, and you got the subwoofers and stuff like that, and the whole movie experience. And I've never really gotten into that, but I'm willing to possibly do that at the end of this. Have to be a good movie though. Have to be a really good movie. But I noticed that a lot of the streaming services, especially like Disney Plus, are releasing some of those new movies now. They're releasing them direct rather than taking them to, a movie theater. And I've also noticed too that some of the outlets like Netflix and things like that, they're carrying a lot of not yet released or not going to be released at theater movies. There was one movie in particular that I watched. It was a while ago. It was probably about a year ago. It starred Jeremy Renner, and there were a couple other names in there. I don't remember all of them, but I had seen them before in different movies and stuff. And it was a very poignant film regarding the Native Americans and the plight of the Native American women in particular, because of the fact it had to deal with rape. And, it's an uncomfortable subject. It's definitely an uncomfortable subject for me, but it's an uncomfortable subject for anybody. However, and I didn't watch it with that in mind. It was a crime story. Which interests me as far as like the crime story part. But the thing is that we're starting to find that releasing movies and shows direct to the consumer is taking hold, and you're not getting all of like the 5-star actors and actresses involved. You're actually getting more of a diversity of people, more of people who are, directors who are not all the mainstream ones, but there's some good stuff out there. And you should take a look. You should take a look at something that's a little bit out of your norm and see, because there is some good stuff out there. There's some good films, some good, TV shows and things like that. My son stumbled across one, Ragnarok. It's not even an American-made film. It only has 6 episodes, but he's been raving about it ever since he watched it. And, it's supposed to be like the story of Thor, but it's not really Thor per se. I mean, it's kind of odd. I watched a couple episodes with him, but he's been bragging about it a lot. So there's another one that maybe you might want to pick up. The episodes are like 45 minutes long or something along those lines. But there's so many things that we have available to us that we're just now, at least in my mind, we're just now taking hold and taking shape, and we've got a lot of time on our hands. So try some of those other things out. I'm a big advocate for not so much the mainstream people, just because of the fact that, a lot of the mainstream stuff, I mean, everybody, it's kind of like, in my mind, it's sort of like football, American football. You have the college kids, the guys that play in college, and they play for the love of the game. And then they get to the NFL and they start playing for money. And there's a stark contrast between those two. And I feel like in some cases there are some of that as well in the stream of movies. You have the guys that act because they love acting and they're trying to get there. They're hungry. They're trying to make it. And so their acting is just that much more real. And then you have the people who have made it and have made their money and are moving into the greatest spheres. And I'm not saying that they're not good. Definitely not saying that. But they tend to lack a little bit of an edge in some cases. And there's ones that stand out. I'm not going to argue with you about that. There are definitely people that stand out. But in my mind, it's more of the ones that haven't quite made it yet. They're right on the edge, that are the better ones to watch and the better ones to listen to in music as well. And that's one of the reasons why I like some of the listings like Amazon Music and Spotify and Pandora and some of those, because they give you options. They give you different things to listen to, something that is totally new and exciting. And that's where I think that a lot of these services are really going to go. So whether or not the movie theaters survive, I don't know. But it definitely gives you something to think about in terms of the next level of what's going on, in terms of where are we going with some of this and what are some of the things that are going to change because of this. So, definitely keep that in mind. And, think about some of the things that are new and different. Try something new, try something different. Think about things you might want to keep around. I know a lot of people went through a lot of spring cleaning and stuff like that now. They're talking about, I saw a funny post on, I think it was Facebook or something. They were saying that they wanted to go and hit all the thrift stores after all of this. Everybody's doing the spring cleaning thing. And that's pretty cool too. I mean, just think about that. So anyway, boy, that's getting really watered down. Shouldn't have put so much ice in there. Anyway. Oh, so what else happened this week? Well, I mean, we had beautiful weather here in the Puget Sound area for an entire week. I think it rained today, like this morning. And that's something a little unseasonable too, because earlier in the week I was, scraping ice off the windshield at 4:00 in the morning. So things are definitely different this year. 2020 is not your normal year, and it's not just the virus. It's a whole bunch of other things, and it just feels different. It feels strange and weird and wonderful all at the same time. But because of all these things happening, this kind of brings me to Easter. And Easter is tomorrow, and it's the celebration of the resurrection of Christ. After he died on the cross and was buried, 3 days later he rose again to ascend into heaven and rule over us. And so, that being said, whatever religion you are, if you celebrate Easter, if you don't, just take a moment to embrace some of the things that are happening, and really think about them. Really think about what's going on in the world today, but only from the standpoint of how things are oddly off kilter, because they are. And it's enough to make you think, at least in my mind, it's enough to make you think that there's something else going on here. I don't quite know what it is. Some might say it's man-made. Not quite sure I fall into that camp. But there's definitely a difference in this year. And it's almost like it's been building for some time. And it's sort of like an earthquake, we've had like the first tremor, and this is sort of the warning. But definitely something to consider. Consider the differences that are going on today and where we're going and what we're doing, and how, as far as like the country and even the world is headed, and things are not quite right. They really aren't. They just feel off, and I don't quite know how to put my finger on it, but they just feel off. So, thinking about tomorrow, thinking about what this means to Catholics and Christians throughout the world. I guess, Catholics are Christians. Anyway, but just like think about that as we're moving. The resurrection of Jesus is the step into the next level. And it's the step moving forward. It's he defeated death and he came out of it. And we're facing this COVID-19 thing, whether you fall into the camp of believing it or not. It is very real. It's real from the standpoint of how it's affecting our lives. And so we need to be able to take this into tomorrow. Think about tomorrow. Think about Easter. Think about what that represents. And it's sort of, in my mind, it's sort of like Christmas. I mean, from the standpoint of individuals and how we've commercialized Christmas, and we don't remember what the real reason for Christmas actually was. And you could talk to anybody about all the different ways that it comes about, but you need to think about the differences in today. This year feels weird. It just really does. And I hope that things are changing. I hope that I'm hoping and praying, I guess is the best way to put it, that we're going to come out of this on the other side and things are going to be for the better, and things are going to be for more for what things should be. But it just feels this way. It just feels this way. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again, but it just feels like things are different. Like something's building, something's there. And so looking at Easter tomorrow, think about Easter, think about what it represents and where the world is going and what we're doing, what you're doing in your life, and what kinds of changes you might need. I mean, spring is usually about changes. Everybody talks about spring cleaning and changes, but this whole year just feels weird. It just feels weird. And I don't know what it is. I really don't. And you know, this whole virus crisis, believe me, it could be a lot worse. Could definitely be a lot worse. But because the virus is here, it's making us think. It's making us do things that we don't normally do, like have your kids around you all the time and sit down and have conversations and enjoy their company, enjoy the company of your spouse. I mean, I know my wife and I are like constantly scrambling. This is definitely weird because we're constantly scrambling trying to get the kids to wherever they need to go and to go to the next place and do their activities and that kind of stuff. We're often tag teaming, trying to figure out who's going to take whom where and that kind of thing. But, you know, this is an interesting situation. And coming to the Easter season, the Easter tomorrow, you know, it's the rising, the resurrection of Christ out of the grave, the changing, going from the level of death into everlasting life. And let's just think about that. Let's just think about the next phase. What is coming? What is the next phase? Because things are definitely backwards. They're backwards and weird. And I know that here in Washington we've got the order. The governor's order is stay at home until May, and you know the kids unfortunately have been told that they're not in school anymore. For some homeschoolers and things like that, that's definitely not the case. But for my kids who have gone to the district, this is weird. You've got distance learning and things like that. I'm going to be interested to see what happens on Monday, but it's definitely something kind of odd. And I've heard reports of, locusts in the Middle East. Haven't looked into them, but it just seems like, again, everything is weird. This year is just a little bit odd, just a little bit odd. So again, take a moment. So just to kind of bring you back to the start of the show, I asked 2 questions. The first question was, what kinds of things, whether it's one item or multiple items, what kinds of things do you want to have still stick around? And what kinds of things are you hoping don't stick around? And just think about those 2 things. Just think about them moving forward. Think about them into the next week or whatever, and let me know. Speaking about letting people know, hey, I know I've got a lot of people who have joined on Facebook. I might have a few that have shown up on YouTube. But if you find this entertaining, this little segment that I'm doing, and for those that join late, definitely go back. I have the video up on YouTube. I have last week's video up on YouTube. I'm going to continue this, but I want your feedback because I'm thinking of doing this on a regular basis. And I kind of want to get a little more audience engagement. So let me know what you think. You don't have to say it now. You don't have to chat it now. If you want, you can send me an email. The email is Rick, R-I-C-K, at whiskeymusings.net or .online. Both places will come to me. And Whiskey Musings is all one word with all lowercase. So the entire thing's lowercase. Rick at whiskeymusings.net or .online. Let me know about it. Go to the YouTube channel that I have built for the Whiskey Musings broadcast, and the links, I've sent the links out a couple times. If you're watching on YouTube, take a moment to subscribe. Take a moment to do that. If you're on Twitter, I'm also doing Twitter live feeds too, as well as my Facebook page. So, feel free, reach out to me on any of those things. I am also looking to, as Kirk has mentioned here on the Facebook chat that's going on, I'm also looking at doing guests. So if you're interested on that, I can definitely try and work on that a little bit more. I kind of got sidetracked with my actual job this week, so I couldn't, put a whole lot of effort toward it. But I'm looking for that. So anyway, let me know what you think. Send me an email, send me a chat, send me a DM, whatever, all the special things that are out there. If you like the program, let me know. If you don't like the program, let me know, because obviously criticism comes in many formats, but I want to continue. I want to move on. I want to keep this going. I want to start something new. This is my new thing that I'm starting. And so you guys just let me know what's going on. And I guess the best thing I can tell you at this point is let's just go ahead and end this right now. And I'll see you next time here on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Thanks everyone for joining.